Hello guys, my name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and welcome back to the channel. With the release of Netflix's The Witcher, thousands of people have been talking about the show for the past week or two. In the typical Netflix style fashion, everyone including myself have been binge watching this show, and I thought I'd give a review and my opinions on the show for skeptics or new viewers who want to know if it's a good TV series. First of all, some background information on myself as the reviewer in this video. I've heard of The Witcher and it first came onto my radar perhaps 3 to 4 years ago. I believe my brother has some of the books and played the games, and I knew someone from college who was a huge fan of the series, and I had an online friend too who was a huge fan of the games also. Most people who play games will have either heard or be a huge fan of The Witcher. I played the first level of the first game, and I do own the first 2 games on Steam now thanks to the Steam Christmas sale, although I've never played past that point nor have I read the book, so this is from the viewpoint of a brand new fan who has been interested in The Witcher as a franchise for a long time, but only now has just started immersing himself in the Witcher world, which means I'm entering this review without bias whatsoever, since I haven't really absorbed enough material to make a fan stated opinion. So everything is my own personal fresh opinion and not affected from outside influence. For those uninitiated, The Witcher as a series is based upon the original book series by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski, and it takes little pinches of inspiration from the video game series by the Polish video game developer CD Projekt. It's a series that many in the media have compared to Game of Thrones, something that has stuck to the project since being mentioned. But in my opinion, The Witcher should not be compared to Game of Thrones. It has many more monsters of folklore, and it certainly didn't fall into the trap that Game of Thrones did in its finale. I would say that The Witcher is its own creative piece that should not be so closely compared to anything fancy-like, and has its own positives, and it seemingly delivers big time. Let's touch on the basic story outline. The Witcher centers around Geralt of the town of Rivia, referred to as Geralt of Rivia, who is a so-called witcher, basically a mutant who has undergone intense training, both physical and mental, to become a monster slayer of beasts. It's set in a world of strange creatures, magic influence from chaos, war and tyranny, where lines between good and evil are blurred. The opening scene shows Cavill's Geralt fighting some kind of large monster in a dark swamp. This scene really sets the atmosphere that this is set in a dark world. The forest is black and fog looms overhead, with almost all colour drained from the shot to show fear and risk of loss of life. This really opened the show well for me. For anyone who is a huge fan of The Witcher's protagonist Geralt, you won't be disappointed. If you're familiar with the DC cinematic universe, specifically Justice League and Man of Steel, you may be aware of Henry Cavill. Cavill is the person casted as Geralt, and let me say he does a great job of filling such shoes. One thing that really made me like Henry Cavill is just how seriously he took the role. I already liked Cavill for a few of his other movies, but when I dived down the rabbit hole and took a look at all the interviews which were promoting The Witcher show before it was released, I realised that Cavill isn't just a big shot actor from Hollywood cast into this role. No, Henry Cavill literally read every one of the books and played all of the games for this role. He's basically just a geek like everyone else who's a fan of the series, saying he's a player of the Total War games and The Witcher, so he's definitely from that kind of background. This definitely gave me some initial faith that Cavill was right for the role, and I wasn't wrong when I watched it. Geralt is the main character, he needs to be done right, and as a fan who hasn't consumed much of the other Witcher games or books, I will say I enjoyed his representation and version of Geralt. Just like in Superman, Cavill is in good shape, which is something you'd expect from a monster hunter, and he has a cynical shade to his character, not enjoying to engage in small talk, and for the most part is very reserved and mysterious, something that Cavill represents well with his coarse gritty voice he uses, which was something I had to get used to after seeing him play Superman. Now let me talk about the fight choreography in this show. The TLDR, which means too long didn't read if you've been on Reddit, is that it's awesome. My brothers thought the beginning of the show was boring, and sure it starts off slow, but anyone who sees the first fight scene will be absolutely hooked. It's gripping, action-packed, and just epic. It's one of those kind of fight scenes where you're rocking in your seat. It's great stuff. Basically, Geralt, after being harassed by a group of local swordsmen in the tavern, reluctantly engages in a one-man duel versus the whole group of men, some 10 or so strong, whom he dispatches off quickly. It's gory, it's real, and for the lack of a better word, like what I said before, epic. The coolest thing is the use of his Witcher powers, one which I learned is called the Ard in The Witcher, a magical sign used by the Witchers. To put it in layman's terms, after I googled it and figured out what it was myself, it's basically force push to the uninitiated, and Geralt uses our monsters and men alike in the show to launch them back. It's satisfying and it looks awesome. Now that I've covered Geralt, I'll cover the other aspects of the show. The show begins with multiple story arcs running in concurrent until they all overlap and conjoin to each other, which is done very well to connect the story and give background to the characters and their humble beginnings before they meet. There is a plot surrounding the character Yennefer, who is a sickly girl who is sold to her parents to a matron of magic, and she becomes one of the most powerful mages in the show by the end of the season. She's depicted really well, and you can definitely see her struggle and hard life at the beginning of the show, as she is seen as ugly by many people, and she basically just craves attention, something which some people may be able to appeal to. They have these kind of characters in most TV shows that have a lot of people from different backgrounds and a lot of characters which may appeal to the audience or make them feel sorry for them. This is the character in The Witcher. She has some pretty intense emotional scenes, and the most memorable is when she's going through a form of ritual to fix her lazy jaw and to change her features. And there's a scene where we see her bloody body and bones in the scene, even seeing her spine, which is a pretty graphic scene, but you can really see the emotion in the writing of this show. Then there is Ciri, a princess who has a deep tie to Geralt since she was a child, born out of the so-called law of surprise, which is something which is explained in the show. She doesn't see as much screen time as the other two main characters, but we do see her background explained in depth, and there is little to question after. The casting is very well managed. I feel like all of the characters filled their roles well, and anyone watching it can find enjoyment in this fantasy world. The set designs were very immersive, definitely selling the story and world, and the special effects that complemented the scenes made the setting more realistic. The monsters look good, albeit not realistic, but not something we see in many films and something you wouldn't expect from a TV show, but they still look good enough to sell the piece. The only downside with the show is it was a little confusing with its timeline. There are scenes with the Queen and the backstory behind War in the Kingdoms, however it jumps to different points in time without warning, and shots are not colour graded or changed in any way to reflect being a different point of time, which makes it hard to determine without warning at what point of time we're in, something that the majority of other people agreed with. However, after watching for some time, it's quite apparent due to certain characters who are already dead being alive in these scenes, although it's a bit abrupt how it jumps to different points, and I think it could have been made much clearer. To conclude, The Witcher is a fast-paced, action-packed show that definitely has me invested. With a second season already confirmed for next year, or this year now in 2020, I'll be continuing the story, and it's given me a newfound push to later check out the games and books, something I've been meaning to do for some 3 or 4 years at this point. If you like the world of fantasy and high-impact fight scenes, monsters, drama with strong characters, then The Witcher will be for you. I hope you enjoyed this review. This has been a spoiler-free review. Although I outlined a few of the things that happened in the events, I haven't ruined the main plot lines or story placement, so hopefully you should be able to still enjoy the show fresh. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe, and remember to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you get notified when I upload a video. I make awesome gaming videos and top 10 content on my channel, as well as reviews like this on movies, TV shows and games. Let me know what you personally thought of The Witcher below in the comments section. Did you enjoy it like I did, or perhaps you didn't like it? I'm interested to know. I'll see you next time.